Welcome to Terra Talks, where we talk about all things real estate. In each episode, we'll tackle current trends and topics of interest, both locally and regionally. However or wherever you decide to tune in, you're not going to want to miss this.
I love to ask my overseas clients, why Barbados? And many of them tell me that they were first introduced to Barbados simply by coming here on vacation. They fell in love with the island and they return over and over again. Many of them bring family, they bring friends. They often stay in a beautiful villa just to provide a more intimate setting. And eventually they feel so happy, so confident and comfortable on the island that they decide they want to make it second home. So in my mind, the luxury real estate market on the island is very closely linked to the performance of the tourism sector. So I'm super excited to chat with Tania today, who heads up our Blue Sky Luxury team. And we are going to share some insights into trends that we've seen over the last financial year and also some things that we're seeing looking forward. We're both total numbers
big data geeks.
Yeah. So really excited to share some of these insights with you today. Tania, why don't we start with Blue Sky Luxury? I love to sit down and just listen to all that you have to share on what's going on and what you've seen over the last financial year.
Sure. So we've been really lucky. I mean, I think it's become a bit of a buzzword, Airbnb, vacation rentals, villas, particularly since the pandemic. But, it's not even that anymore. It's just we've been really lucky over time. We've now had, 4 successive record years, not just in value, but in volume, and just keep exceeding targets regardless of what happens. So it's been a really, really interesting ride. We've just finished last year. We did over 3,000 bookings last year, which is crazy.
That's amazing.
We used to sit in about, 2,000 world. That's like 12,000 guests.
Wow.
When you think about that being, how many people that really is in the villas we have, starting anywhere from a 1-bedroom up to 12 bedrooms. So our largest group being about 24 or 25 people. But every year that we set our budgets, we somehow managed to do better. I mean, we exceeded our budget last year by 9%. And that was up over 12% from the previous year. So
very, very
it's
strong
very, very
trends.
strong trends.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, some of that we've been lucky because you guys have done so well. So
Yes.
this comes in with the whole linkage between the two is as the sales market comes up, you have more product coming on the market. With Allure finishing last year, we launched 11 condos just before Christmas last year and booked every single one that was available 2 weeks out. And that was new 11-bedroom,
Gosh, that
11
would've been
condos.
last minute.
Yeah, last minute.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't think that people still make Christmas plans at that time.
No.
But they do.
Yeah.
So it's
I think you
been really
mentioned
interesting.
actually when I was listening to you at the end of our financial year that you were seeing more last minute bookings than you had in the past.
For sure. Lots more last minute. I mean,
Okay.
we used to say that September was abysmal. It's still not great. It's still a really quiet time of year, but September and October that we've just come through, we still were seeing last minute bookings a couple of weeks out. I think a lot of that has to do with where our guests are coming from.
Okay. So
Yeah.
where do you find the guests are coming from typically?
So last year, and I think that's a lot of the growth has been attributed to that, is because of the U.S. market airlift. I mean, we're so closely tied in our tourism market to how many seats we can get in a plane to get people here because they can't drive here.
Right.
So last year, they added about 60,000 seats over the winter in the U.S. airlift, just increasing the number of flights that came from there. Used to be you could fly from JFK on JetBlue, so no seats in the front of the plane, or from Miami, but not much other than that. And now you have flights that come from Miami from American Airlines as well, but you then added airlift in Atlanta, Boston, Charlotte,
Yeah, exactly.
DC from Washington. I'm sure I'm missing some, but we now have American Airlines, JetBlue, United Airlines, and Delta, all flying as major carriers from the U.S. So the U.S. market doubled their airlift from November 2024. And through the winter season, just from January to April, the U.S. market was up about 14%.
Wow. Okay.
While the UK market which has been our historical leader in terms of
Absolutely,
share,
from a sales perspective as well. Yeah.
actually dropped about 4%.
Okay.
And we've just got numbers recently, and for the very first time, the US market in terms of share of stayover arrivals actually exceeded the UK market. So we've seen a huge growth in stayover arrivals. Because of that airlift. It's just been passengers waiting, and it's a much shorter flight than having to come from the UK, right?
Yeah.
So
has there been any increase that you know of from the UK or
Not
from
re-
Canada?
a little bit from Canada, but negligible,
Okay.
small amounts. I think the UK market seems to be a bit hesitant at the moment. And certainly when the UK market comes, they plan long haul, because you can't just, I shouldn't say you can't, many people
Yes.
do, right? But when you're going to jump on a flight for 7 or 8 hours, that's something you plan in advance.
Yes,
And you're not going to come
absolutely.
for 4 or 5 nights, whereas the US market just thinks, well, I don't have to organize much to just go for 4 days. I can
Yeah.
jump on a flight tomorrow. So they do. They'll book something last minute even. So that's something we're definitely seeing
Okay.
is the lead time for bookings is shrinking. So sometimes we get nervous and we think, geez, are we pacing behind in those months? And then all of a sudden it's full.
Right.
So you see that a lot in beachfront condos, particularly any of the smaller units, less so in the larger ones, but we're getting luxury visitors as well from the US market. So I think that's driving a big part of the last minute growth, and just the number of people coming from the US in general.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got basically 3 primary segments, what we would call segments, classes of properties within Blue Sky Luxury, but then we also have another sub-brand called Bluescape that is more, I don't want to say budget conscious, because we have some really lovely villas in Bluescape as well, but there tend to be kind of more independent travelers, less heavy staff service in terms of
Right.
chefs and butlers. They'll have housekeeping a couple of times a week, but otherwise very independent people. And so if you think about Bluescape, and then you've got what we call classic, which is like your standard kind of beachfront condo, self-serviced for the most part, but high
Right.
quality accommodation, similar to kind of a 4-star hotel, I would say. And then you have the luxury segment, which you have luxury condos, which would be more like a 5-star hotel quality accommodation, but again, less service than in a standalone villa. You've got your standalone luxury villas, and then what we would call our flagship or elite collection.
Exactly. Right.
So, volume will always be within Classic and Bluescape. And what we've seen in terms of that segment of the market has been up in terms of volume about 40% in the last year, which is
Fantastic.
bonkers.
Yes.
I mean, and I say that was up to kind of July. When we looked at it yesterday, looking at where are we continuing to pace, that specific segment of the market, the books through the online channels like Airbnb, VRBO, Flipkey, Expedia, Booking.com, any of that segment of the market is up like 70% in terms of volume. Just crazy.
that is crazy.
just-
That's
I
fantastic.
mean, Sammy and our team leads that part of the business, and
Right.
she keeps thinking, okay, let me push the target, and then she still blows it out of the water. So it's crazy. Like, I mean, the amount of bookings that we have taken, which are forward looking, not necessarily staying during those periods, since January to now, is up 50%.
Yeah, and I know that I was reading recently about how our tourism arrivals in 2024 finally surpassed 2019's record levels.
They did.
So
Through the winter, 24, 25. Yeah.
right, and then so far for the year they're trending above as well. So that's really, really positive.
Yeah.
You
Like
know,
their
in terms of what
stayover-
we're seeing for Barbados, I often say to people that in a way, you know, COVID had a positive impact on the island, because through the welcome stamp, the island was exposed to so many more people who had never even thought about Barbados. They came, they fell in love, and again, you know, they had their family, their friends, you know, and now it's really been something that has held us steadfast, and we've gone from strength to strength, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting to see also the length of stay, because it used to be, you know, if I got 1 3-week booking, you'd be thinking, oh my goodness, someone's coming for 3 weeks. And now you get 3, 4 weeks, 2 months, 3
Right,
months.
and that's probably because people can work remotely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Similarly, I mean, we're assuming, but I'd love to hear your perspective on it, that's had an impact on sales, because
Yes,
when people might have
100%.
said, you know, does the economics make sense if I'm only going to come 2, 3 weeks a year? Maybe it doesn't make sense. I could just rent something. Whereas now, if they know they can come and stay and work remotely, then all of a sudden the economics make sense.
Yeah.
And you think, I'll be able to use it more because I can work remotely from here, and that's great. But it's also, I'm sure, having an impact on your long-term rentals with people moving here.
Yeah, you know what? It's positively impacted both, I would have to say, because it used to be that, especially in the higher end, our buyers were, they were about to retire or they had retired. Whereas now we've actually seen a shift downwards in terms of people's ages because they can come, they can enjoy Barbados. And with the welcome stamp or, some of the residency packages, your kids can go to school. And I have some owners who love it because they are employed in England. They wake up early in the morning, super early. They do their work. By 2:00, everybody's, not working in England anymore. So then they're off. And then they enjoy the afternoon with their family, their kids. They go to the beach. So quality of life, I think, is really, really good for them, which is so lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know that we've heard anyway, and I'm sure you'll know the statistics more than I will, that the long-term rental market just doesn't have enough stock half the time. And it's been an interesting thing because a lot of the time we've had people say, short-term rental is where you make your best returns. It's not necessarily the truth. It does really well, but it's not always the case.
Yeah.
And we have had some properties where we said, you should look at long-term because, the location may not lend itself to holiday so much, but it's a beautiful property. But the long-term rental rates have been so good, you might actually do better than in that for the first time if you're not that, tight on using it. People who are buying for investment reasons usually think investment for short-term.
Yeah.
Whereas now investment for long-term seems to also be just as good.
Definitely. I mean, long-term rental rates have gone up. There's no doubt because there's so much demand. And again, that has come from the welcome stamp as well. I think it's just a combination. We only have so much inventory. During COVID, obviously there was the short-term rental inventory. We could leverage on that for the longer-term stays. But then, of course, when things turned around and the island started to thrive again, then much of that inventory went back into short-term rentals because owners wanted to come and enjoy their homes for part of the year. So that worked really well for them. But we've still got a lot of people just looking to stay here longer term. So, everything is linked, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why I love that we can chat with each other about trends.
And we have so many people that fall in love with Barbados and stay. I mean, I guess same thing would apply for me, right? I came here in 2006 for 6 months. 19 years later, I'm still here.
Right. Yeah.
So that happens. Is a place that grows on you. I've got a client who's been coming for 4 years, for about 3 months, from January through until March. And they come and stay in, 4 or 5 bedroom, larger villa, and they're, in their 40s with their young family now. They now have 2 kids and are now looking for a 2-year rental.
Yeah.
And looking for something to buy and make their home because they just fallen in love with it.
Yeah,
they initially came down here in COVID, spent the whole time here and just absolutely love being here and keep bringing their friends.
Yeah. As I say, it's a circle, isn't it? Because you come on vacation, you fall in love with the island. And I mean, I find it fascinating. I always say that, being a Bajan and being in real estate is like a gift because you get to fall in love with your island all over again, time and time again. Some of my clients are so well traveled. I mean, they could choose a home anywhere in the world, and yet they're choosing to buy a home in our island, and I just find that fascinating. And often they say it's because of the people, that they feel really comfortable and everything. But yeah, so they come on vacation, they love it, then eventually they buy a home and then they want to rent it. So it's a full circle where they benefit from how they got here in the first place,
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting in terms of what we see with that coming back and wanting to rent and make something their home and fall, as you say, we fall in love with things all over again every time. And I think that's what our team loves so much about it too, is that they get the opportunity to sell a holiday to somebody who has never been here before and we have such a high repeat rate in Barbados.
Yeah, I think we have one of the highest number of repeat guests in the entire Caribbean. And I wouldn't doubt that. The number of people that I've spoken to that have been here, 20 times, 40 times, have been coming for 15 years.
We have a family who owns one of our elite villas, whose kids who are now in their 20s and getting married, who don't know Christmas other than in Barbados.
Yeah,
they've never had a Christmas anywhere other than Barbados.
Yeah. They leave at Christmas And they book for the following Christmas.
Yes.
They book their car, their restaurants, their everything, you know, which is great. Christmas is a fun time because a lot of people just know each other. You know, they've come back to meet up. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the trends that you've seen, it definitely mirrored on the real estate sales side. As you said, we've had a number of record years. Last financial year, we were up 34%. This financial year, we were up 35%. I mean, that's just, I think, absolutely incredible with everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
We have sold and rented over 700 properties in the last financial year. And in general, in terms of the number of people that were calling and inquiring about owning a property on the island, we saw a big surge there. It was 39% up for our financial year over the previous year, which is really encouraging.
Yeah.
But interestingly, the number of properties that we sold was actually pretty steady. So effectively, that means that our average sales price was quite a bit higher, you know, in order to drive our revenues up. So it means that, you know, higher price points are in demand. And we look at that, when we look at our figures really closely, we have seen jumps in those segments, which is great. In terms of rentals, the number of inquiries was quite steady. But the number of transactions was up by 13%.
And that's even with supply constrained?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So that showed, you know, a better conversion rate. And maybe that means we have better quality inventory.
Okay.
Maybe, you know, and it is something that we've seen. There's some really nice product coming on the market. I mean, we've got some recently completed projects like Azuro and Sorrento that's just finished.
We're renting 2 of them now.
Yeah, and you know, they're really in high demand. They go very, very quickly at top dollar.
So with all of those new people coming onto the island as owners, I think one of the things that people don't always talk about, because when they think about a hotel stat, right, they think about occupancy in a hotel and they don't really think about, they just think paid occupancy, right? But the part of the market that I think is so cool in the villa sector and vacation rentals is, remember that those owners, when they come and stay themselves, are tourists too, right? So remember I had said that we did about 3,000 bookings last year, 12,000 guests, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't include people who are coming to stay in their own homes.
Right.
Now, our property managers prepared, you know, for over 400 arrivals for our owners who are coming each to stay for their own periods of time, because
on their own vacations of sort. Yeah.
Because in our portfolio, we have about another third in terms of the properties we manage in Barbados that are owner use or long-term rental, that are not actually rented short-term at all.
Right.
But they're still coming and staying in homes and contributing to that. And so it's not just what's coming as the traditional tourist, right?
Yes.
It's someone who's invested here, who's bringing foreign exchange here to run their homes and staying it themselves as a tourist, even though it's not necessarily paid occupancy. So when we look at the occupancies compared to hotels, you know, a hotel would be crying if they were getting 65% in the winter months, right? But kind of on average, we've started actually collecting data through the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association for the last year now. Well, coming up on a year now. And I sit as a chair for that group in the villa sector. And through the winter, it was about a 65% occupancy average. But I mean, in the villas, if you're 75% occupied, you're 100%. Right?
Yeah.
Because of turnarounds. The likelihood you're doing back-to-back same-day turnaround like you can do in a hotel key, you can't do it.
No, not with some of those large, fantastic villas.
I mean, we you know, sometimes we'll have owners saying, "How come it's not 90% plus in the winter months?" And we say, it's just not possible with the turnarounds. It's not possible. So if you're doing 75%, you're full. That's only giving you small gaps to make sure your staff get a break and you can actually do a deep clean in the house. But in the summer months, remember you were saying that in the summertime you're getting more sales closing through summer months, which has been an odd trend. Similarly for us, you know, it used to be a rule of thumb in the summer is if you were getting about 20-25% occupancy, you were doing well. And now we're seeing averages with owner occupancy as well at about closer to 30-35%, depending on the property, of course. The beachfront condos do really well. I remember so many of our owners in Allure, even just from a facility management perspective, they're looking at the cost and what was projected based on traditional rentals. And Allure seems to be one that actually does really well with the online channels, really well last minute, short window, great with the US market, modern aesthetic. And they haven't really had a slowdown. They had a little bit of a slowdown, but not the same way we're used to.
It really is incredible considering that it came to market so late.
Yeah.
and it's only now building its brand. So if it's doing so well now, in a few years, to come, it's going to be even better. I know that my owners there are very happy with the performance from a financial perspective, for sure. It really has been an interesting time as I look at what's happened over the summer. I brought up the numbers just so that we could share it today, and I looked specifically at the number of properties that we have sold or agreed sales on over $1 million US, which is typically the foreign market. We have agreed 67% more transactions.
That's a lot.
I mean, that's incredible. I was quite stunned myself. I had to double check the numbers,
And that's not like a delayed decision making from people who maybe just couldn't pull a trigger early in the winter. It's people who are no.
Wow. It seems, I think what it is people that they know that the season is nearly upon us, and now is the time for the opportunities. Yeah. We also have some great product. Quite often, owners will wait until October, November to launch a new listing, right? But we had some that came on in August. We have some projects that have been introduced to the market, obviously like One Carlisle, and Aspire, and we had a beautiful home in Sandy Lane called Tranquility, and they came on at non-traditional times. So maybe that's one of the things that's really helped us as well. But that's really encouraging. One of the other trends that I want to make sure that I do touch on is that we've definitely seen more Canadian buyers. Yeah, we've seen a surge there. Interestingly, with what you've said about the US, we've seen a little bit of an uplift there, but not huge. It is an area that we want to focus on going forward because there are a lot of Barbadians who have left when they were younger. They've gone overseas and they're doing phenomenally, but they want to come back home. They want to retire. And, that's quite often the American buyer that I come across is someone that has a tie to the Caribbean.
Right.
I
think it'll be interesting, right? Because this is just the first winter that you really had a huge influx of people from the US.
Yeah.
They maybe haven't got to the fall in love stage yet. They haven't become the second time repeat.
Yeah.
I think maybe next year's cycle will be really interesting to see what happens with them, because at least for them, the dollar is tied to us. So they're not worrying about any currency risk there if they are going to buy here.
Exactly.
So I think it'll be interesting.
We're definitely still seeing the typical UK buyer. They still love Barbados, which is wonderful.
They wait their whole life to buy in Barbados.
Yeah,
Came as children, always dreamed of it.
Yeah. So that's good. That's good. But it's interesting how it's diversifying a little bit from where it was at one point.
I think we just don't see as much of the Canadian market relative to the population of the country. I mean, I'm Canadian, Canadian Barbadian, but we don't see as much of a boost because there's still only 2 airlines flying there, right?
Yeah.
So our airlift from the Canadian market hasn't expanded so significantly in the past few years. So it's difficult to get the same level of growth as you would in the US without an increase in airlift. And barring the daily flights you get right now from Toronto and Montreal being the key places, the rest of the market is quite far. So if you were thinking about people coming from British Columbia or Alberta, they'd have to take multiple flights to get here. And it's very long haul compared to the US market who make a split decision. But we do still have quite a lot of Canadian owners relative to US owners, and Canadian repeats. Yeah. We're interested to see what happens this winter because seems to be a reluctance in the market for Canadians to be traveling to the US as much as they were before.
That's one of the things that I was going to touch on. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see whether the Canadians decide to spend winter here instead of spending it as a snowbird in Florida or somewhere like that instead. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how that plays out, whether they've been kind of waiting.
Definitely playing out on a sales side already because, one of my big Canadian buyers, he was selling his property in Florida and he wanted to make Barbados home. He did say that Barbados had better weather, more predictable weather and less bugs, which I thought was interesting. And then one of my most recent big buyers, he's from Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's
far.
Yeah, exactly. It is far, right? And I'm always like, oh, you've come so far. He's like, oh, it's nothing, But
I feel like when you live in Vancouver, you're used to long flights for everything.
Yeah. what about all of these hotels? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure.
I know that you've got a lot of information on that.
Yeah, so we've got 7 hotels building right now. It's something that I think shows confidence in the tourism market in Barbados.
The construction sector is booming.
The construction sector,
A lot of
you can
real
barely
estate
find someone
projects
to
as
build a
well.
house, right?
Yeah.
So with the hotel sector, up for the last 10 years, up until recently, the only significant development within the hotel group was Wyndham out in Sam Lords, and not in like a traditional area that you necessarily would think about.
Yeah,
right?
we've got some focused areas now that I think are going to be fantastic.
Yeah, but otherwise the hotel stock was pretty flat at about 5,500 rooms for the last while, versus villas and vacation rentals that have been like a 10x multiple in terms in the last 10 years. Yeah. So there's over 6,000 listings on the online channels now in terms of unique properties,
Right.
which is crazy. So when you think about it that way, that each one of those is probably 2 to 3 bedrooms, you have more bedroom stock and accommodation stock in villas and vacation rentals than you do in hotels.
Right. Now
But
that is a stat I did not know.
Yeah. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the next 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Because of these 7 projects that are building.
Right.
Having only just added over 400 in Wyndham in 23, 24, soft launch 23 and into 2024, you now have got Pendry, which is up at Port Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Montage, the old Four Seasons site that hasn't broken ground yet, but will. You have the Beaches project, which is Sandals family brand, which is a huge development.
And that's broken ground.
That's broken ground.
Yep.
Site cleared.
A lot going on in the north.
A lot going on up there.
Yeah.
So interesting for what will happen in Speightstown.
Absolutely. I think it's gonna really help to feed some great industry in Speightstown. Yeah.
You have Royalton, right smack in Whole Town.
Which is progressing very quickly.
Yes, it is. Opening
Yes.
next year.
Yes.
And then you have Indigo on the south.
Yeah.
And you've got Blue Monkey as well. That's right in right across from Coral Cove on the west coast.
Yeah, it's pretty much finished actually.
Yeah, pretty much finished. And Hyatt then, which is in by where the Pierhead development is.
Well, I was just going to say, and then you have the Pierhead development itself, which I think is absolutely fantastic stuff happening for Bridgetown.
Yeah. And then, although they were supposed to do it in around 2020, all of the hotels that were taken over by Marriott in around 2020 are now just completing all of their renovations. A couple of them have opened, and the rest of them will open between now and next summer.
Right.
So you have that whole hotel stock that's being uplifted as well. So, but lots of big brands, which has not been a thing we've had.
In terms of the level, we've always talked about Sandy Lane being the creme de la creme, but I think they've got some competition coming, which is really fantastic for the island. I mean, the level of service and everything. And the other thing is, we've got the branded residences coming with Hyatt and Pendry, which I think is going to bring a different buyer. My understanding, obviously, we don't have a lot of experience with it, but Hyatt was saying that they typically command prices that are 40% above the typical market prices. So, and I wonder if like the American buyer is the typical buyer there,
maybe.
Because they're more
like
brand conscious and all
they
of
like
that.
the confidence in a brand particularly since Barbados is a new destination for them.
So there's definitely a lot of exciting stuff happening on the island.
Yeah, but all of those hotels is going to add 1,200 rooms.
Wow. And you said 530, no, how many?
5,500 traditionally.
All right, let's go back.
Hovering around there. So it's going to add about 1,200 rooms to the room stock with the 7 hotels that are building.
Wow.
Whereas historically, we've kind of hovered in the 5,500 rooms zone for a decade. So when you think about that amount being built within a span of 3 years, compared to almost nothing built in the last 10, with a few of them that had closed in the meantime, it's going to be really interesting. But as you mentioned, I think the two things I'm excited about, but also nervous about at the same time, I'm really excited to have those brands come in with their training programs in terms of service.
Yeah, absolutely.
That have not really well known, that will train our local market in terms of uplifting the service levels to an international standard. Not to say that our standard has not been there, but I think it's just going to be really interesting to see how that affects the tourism market in terms of Barbados, and how that affects the supply of labor into the villas and places like that, because we've been really lucky with staff. But when you think about 1,200 rooms and staff, I mean, we have a hard time staffing our villas now and finding good staff. So what will happen when you have 1,200 rooms to staff in terms of your labor in Barbados is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. Well,
We'll see what happens.
I think what's fantastic is there'll be a lot of opportunities for young people.
For sure.
you know, which is really going to be good for the island. And
And I think I'm hopeful that I know the BHTA is working on it already with government, trying to make sure that we're organizing training programs and that we're going into schools and sensitizing them about what a career in tourism looks like, to make sure that we're getting people into the funnel thinking about it, because you've got some of those hotels aren't going to open until 2027 or so. So you still got some time to get people in to make sure that they're trained. But I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see what happens also with many of the hotels who have enjoyed heavy, heavy repeat business, that they have barely had to do any marketing to make sure they're full. And in the last 2 years, with so much of this past winter and going into this next one, with the Marriott room stock being out under renovation, a lot of that, I think it's interesting to see how that will shift as well, because some of what we have seen is repeats who used to stay in some of that product, because they can't get a room, they'll shift to a villa or vacation rental.
Right.
So it'll be interesting with the new hotels if it shifts back, or if once you've gone that way, if you stay there,
yeah,
you know?
lots of exciting things happening.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Betty. This has been a lot of fun. And I think it's always great to be able to compare notes on the real estate market and holiday rental side, because Barbados continues to be a place with strong demand for both. And everything we've been seeing shows optimism in the market, new investment, new growth, new people coming to see our island. And I'm really optimistic about the future. I think it's looking great.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks to everyone for listening. I hope you found it insightful, and we look forward to sharing some more trends with you in the near future.